Welcome all to DeFi, crypto, and airdrops. Got to apologize for yesterday. Was right in the middle of the stream and had a microburst. A windstorm came through the area, and I'm as you can see, I'm in a cabin in the woods. So tree went down and took out the power lines. So I had to actually plug into my truck and close out the stream. But we'll pick up kind of where we left off. But first of all, thank you all for showing up. Appreciate all of you. And so, if you could, this is our YouTube channel, DeFi, Crypto, and Airdrops on YouTube. We're just started it up with Discover Crypto, Blockchain Basement. Actually, you can see here Blockchain Basement, Discover Crypto, BitLab Academy, Investing Bros, Degen Alpha, and Life, Liberty, and Liquidity, all really good channels. Blockchain Basement is kind of a little more politics and crypto, crypto alpha. Discover Crypto is kind of macro level, what's going on in government with a lot of stuff as far as regulation and what's being drafted, to kind of build out the infrastructure, and the regulatory guidance for crypto. BitLab Academy with Kelly. If you're into trading, it's definitely a good one to catch. And then same thing with Investing Bros. Degen Alpha Taco is great with gaming. A lot of gaming alpha from there, and he messes around with a little bit of airdrops and a little bit of DeFi as well. So definitely give them check them out. Let's see. Here's my X. If you want to come on here, got just this is kind of where I put a little bit of alpha out there, just kind of minute by minute, just anytime anything interesting pops up. It's veteran the number 4 crypto. Usually on Mondays and Saturdays, I got my co-host Jeff, the blockchain report. He's the tech mind. He's the one that finds all these really early gems, and the way that he finds them is with airdrops. So he'll just get out there and catch a lot of these, like Plume. He's the one that turned me on to Plume forever ago. But he's able to find these by by doing the airdrops. He's able to find out about them, get knowledgeable about how the protocol works, kind of what they're doing, what their use case is, all those sorts of things. So he's a great resource. But Mondays and Saturdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when we go live. Of course, those of you watching, the truth. He's over on Blockchain Basement. Have to give a special shout out to him. He's the one that helped us get this channel going. So always got to show him the love. Want to give a shout out to Lucas. So in my DeFi journey, over the past like 4 or 5 months, I learned a lot from Crypto Labs research. There is a scary lack of information, good, solid information out there on on learning DeFi and how DeFi works, how these protocols works, things like that. And I'm sharing my journey, but I am nowhere near the level that that Lucas is over at Crypto Labs Research, and really excited about it. It looks like on this Monday's show that he's actually going to be coming on live with us and sharing some of that alpha. So yeah, I'm really excited about him coming on. So if you can join us this Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and he's going to be bringing some high level DeFi alpha. Here's their YouTube channel, just at Crypto Labs Research. Again, great channel. They have a lot of really good content. And then they also have a free course that you can go through to learn. We'll be launching our own here soon as well. So right into it. I'm big on stoicism. If you don't have discipline and discipline over your emotions, you're going to get wrecked in crypto and in life in general. And so, here's just a couple of kind of stoic tips. You become what you give your attention to. So obviously, what you focus on, if it's negativity, if it's just wasting your time, playing video games all day, whatever it is, it's that is what you're going to become. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Practice what you preach. Pretty simple. To improve, you have to be okay with looking foolish. Don't be afraid to fail. Some of the biggest lessons I learned, and the most powerful lessons I've learned, especially in the military, was when I failed. I would rather fail and learn from it than just always be successful. Because then when you stumble and fall, most people that have just always had success don't know how to handle it. You can't learn what you think you already know. Don't act like you know everything. Always be searching out somebody like DeFi. I do not know everything. I am always searching out people like Lucas or anybody that can teach me, and help me expand my knowledge. And stop waiting to demand the best for yourself. Just get out there and live life. Get out there and just do it. So let's give a quick shout out because I know the basement, jumped over here. Appreciate you all. So we got Jay. Jay's a great supporter of the channel. Nasty stepmom. She got unstuck from the dryer. Appreciate you. Crypto Stevo. Hell yeah. More channel noise. I haven't seen that name yet, but welcome. Sally Stacks. I've seen you in the chats. Appreciate you. Falco. Yeah, Crypto Labs is really great. But yeah, he's gonna be on insufficient. Appreciate you, brother. So so let's take a look at the markets real quick before we dive into the DeFi. So the reason I brought up the stoicism is a perfect example of not being emotional. Is that base for everyone yesterday? And I'm not going to get deep into this. Everybody's talked about it to nauseum. But if you weren't emotional and you put a little bit of money into that dip, for example, like you put $100 into that massive, when it was the rug pull that everybody was saying, um, you know, you potentially, would be up a couple 100% right now. So, you know, you have to keep emotion out of things to seize opportunities. Soul, perfect example. When FTX crashed, during the bear market, I bought Soul at like $20. It went down to as low as $8, and I ended up selling at 20, or excuse me, at 200. So I made a really good profit on that, and it was because I wasn't emotional. A lot of people were emotional and they sold off. I bought that blood and I profited from it. Ohm, Ohm is another great example. I'm actually talking with the CEO, JP Mullen, about coming on the show next week. I really want to give him an opportunity to put out there, what happened, give some up to date news because it was a huge market cap. And, and I don't personally own it, but I know that it's a DeFi play. And there's a lot of people out there that did own it. And so I want to make sure that we're bringing that news to you all. Kyle Watts, appreciate you joining us, man. All of you that are watching, if you could, just do us a favor and like and share the stream. We definitely want to grow this. There's not a whole lot of channels out there, teaching DeFi, and it's going to be a huge part of traditional finance. I just think that at some point, DeFi and TradFi are going to merge, and it's just going to be, it's just going to be finance. It's just going to be seamless. So yeah, want to help people learn about it. So fear and greed, we're still, deep into fear. Definitely towards Bitcoin season. All, all we were pumping there for a minute. We're definitely Bitcoin dominance is reigning supreme right now. But we definitely, I'm definitely ready to see some altcoin movement. I don't know about all you. Here's that basis for everyone. A little bit of that. The chart you can see where it dumped back here and since has recovered, retraced a little bit and it's on its way back up. Again, I'm not going to go on and on about basis for everyone. Mantra, JP Mullen. I was in a spaces, I believe it was yesterday, and was talking in that spaces with Kelly Kellum over at BitLab Academy. There was a couple thousand people in there. Was able to get on stage and made some comments, and he reached out and friended me on X. So reached out to him and asked if he wanted to come on the show, and he's going to be coming on hopefully next week, but definitely in the near future. Waiting to hear back. So, speaking of DeFi, those of you that are part of XRP, you new channel who this is veteran crypto C90. So Flare. Those of you that are familiar with XRP, I held XRP all through the bear market. Um, After it pumped, I actually sold the majority of my XRP. I know that's a lot of people out there will give me crap for it, but I bought into the Ripple pre-IPO, and I bought into Arrow, I bought into Plume, I bought into Ondo, I bought into diversified into it because I was way too heavy. I had like 30,000 plus XRP, so I diversified a bit. But because I had XRP, I got the Flare airdrop, and I have been holding this on Uphold because they have a monthly airdrop for anybody that is holding Flare. And I'm not huge into airdrops, but hey, free money, for just holding it there. But Flare has a lot of great partnerships going for it. It's Elliptic, Layer Zero, Hypernative, Google Cloud, Anchor Protocol, Arkham, Hex Trust, and basically what they do is they add a smart contract functionality to projects like older projects that might not necessarily have that natively. So like XRP, didn't have smart contract, natively. Bitcoin didn't have smart contracts natively. So it's basically a project that adds that functionality, to where it allows you to be able to DeFi a lot of those assets. And there's a lot of other, projects out there that are doing this kind of thing now. But again, this is native to the XRP protocol. So like I was talking about, Flare has, the rewards, the monthly airdrops, usually around the 14th, 15th of the month, and it's 36 monthly airdrops over time. I'm not sure exactly which one we're on now. It's been going on for quite. Oh, here we go. So it looks like it's towards the end of 2026. So it looks like there's only a couple left. So if you have Flare, you can put it on a Bifrost wallet and get the airdrops, or you can just put it on Uphold if you have an Uphold account. You can actually just get the free airdrops there as well, and it's around 3.3% of whatever you're holding is what you get each month. Just to give you an idea of what you might be able to get on that. What up, Wispy? Appreciate you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask there in the chat. I'm more than happy to to answer any questions that you guys have on DeFi. So just a daily update, market growth and real world asset tokenization. You can see, it's doing nothing but going parabolic, and and private credit again being a huge portion of that. Anybody that doesn't understand what private credit is, it's in a nutshell, it's a basically for collections is my the best definition that I can come up with. Where it is, it allows. You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. I don't want to. I don't want to speak on something if I'm not intimately familiar with it. But private credit, U.S. Treasury debt, commodities, U.S. Treasuries, all those sorts of things are all being tokenized, and that's really what's skyrocketing right now. At some point, I'm sure real estate, intellectual property, a lot of those things will get tokenized, in mass as well. But right now, this is kind of how where we sit. We've already gone up like 1.14 billion, just in the past, like week or two. So, it's definitely going to be a huge narrative, in the coming, months and years, as well as DeFi. Let's see. So, just to give you an idea, from the TVL and DEX volumes that are going on right now. So you can see, right here. I'll drag this over so you can just see, kind of more recent. So since the beginning of 2024, this is kind of like. We're just grinding along, sideways as far as total value locked and the volume on dexes. And anybody that doesn't understand how DeFi works, the root of DeFi and how you become profitable is basically volume. So the way that you're making money by providing liquidity into these liquidity pools is when people go to bridges, when they go to swaps like Pancake Swap, Uniswap, when they go to Aerodrome, all these different places to swap between tokens. There are small fees incurred, and those small fees are paying people like me and you that are providing liquidity for those swaps. So the more volume that there is, the more that you're going to earn. And hence, I'll share this really quick. So that's why, and again, you know, this is why that I am always hyping up Crypto Labs research. Is I kind of I borrowed this from them. Come on, wanting to be slow. Well, anyway, Anyway, the rules are is you want to make sure you're in assets that are strong assets, that you believe in long term. Because if it ends up taking a dip and you're in a concentrated liquidity pool with a range and it goes out the bottom and you stop earning, whenever you rebalance to get back into range, you're locking in losses. So a lot of times, like I have an ETH trade right now, and I'll show it to you for full transparency. So this is the ETH trade that I'm in that's out of range. You can see down here on the bar, this is BFAT. This is how I track some of my positions. But you can see I'm well out of range. I need to get back up to $2,400 to get back into range for this position. But I'm not worried about it because it's ETH. At some point, I hope ETH is going to go back up to at least $2,400. I'll get back into range and start earning again. Um, but I'm not freaking out. And if this was a meme coin, I would probably think about pulling my liquidity out, putting it somewhere else, and just taking it on the nose as far as taking those losses. Instead, I'm leaving it there because as it goes back up, this deposit amount, the value of my deposit is going to go back up with it. Because if you look, I'm holding 1.68 wrapped ETH in this pool and no USDC because I'm out the bottom of my range. As it moves back towards here, then the value of that 1.68 wrapped ETH is going to of course go back up. And once I go back into range, it will start selling off this wrapped ETH into USDC and DCAing me out. If it goes out the top of the range, then I'll be all in on USDC, and that's when I would rebalance to basically sell off some of that USDC into wrapped ETH so that I can be back in range and start earning again. So I'm just sitting on 1.688 ETH, wrapped ETH, just waiting for it to go back up. So I'm not losing ETH. Just the ETH I'm holding is losing value. When it goes back up, it will increase in value. I hope that makes sense to y'all. Welcome, OG Backroad, and love to see you here, Granny's Garden. Love chatting with you in the on the other shows. So that's where I'm sitting on this wrapped ETH position. So that is the importance of picking of picking assets that you believe in long term. Because if it goes out the bottom, you're basically just hodling a bag, and in my case, wrapped ETH. So if you're holding a meme coin, you know you might not be as convicted that it's going to come back up. But second is I look for TVL, and actually here I'll bring this up because it's going to show it a little more accurately. So I look for a TVL or total value locked, and this is Uniswap, um, of at least $250,000 or more. Reason being is slippage. When you're entering and exiting these pools, what's going to happen is if it's really low TVL, you're going to have to increase the slippage and potentially lose money, entering and exiting, these pools, which obviously you don't want to do. So I look for 250K of TVL or higher. As far as volume, on the 1 day or 24 hour, I like to see a volume of at least 250K or higher. Optimally, I would like to see it be equal to or greater than the TVL. Let's see if that came back up. There we go. So here's the DeFi rules. Again, believe in the assets, like I said, TVL 250K or higher, 24-hour volume equal to or greater than the TVL. I like to use trusted dexes. So Uniswap and Aave. So Uniswap for liquidity pools, Aave for lending and borrowing on ETH mainnet and a lot of other chains as well. On Base, I like Aerodrome for my liquidity pools and Morpho for my borrowing and lending as of right now. And then on Sonic, Silo and Shadow are the places on Sonic that I like. The more trusted the platform, obviously the better. There are dexes, there is risk involved with your assets on these platforms. If the platform goes under, the protocol goes under, you potentially can lose your assets. Make sure that you're aware of that. Do your research. Make sure you understand the risks, in DeFi. We're very early on. So, there is still some risks involved with this. And then optimally, you want to pick assets or pairs that are trending sideways optimally if you're doing, especially if you're doing a range. Because if it's the longer it trends sideways, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'll show you in a second my Plume positions. These are the ranges that I set on my Plume ranges. And you can see the longer it trends sideways, the longer it stays in range. The longer it stays in range, the longer you're earning. So, you know, uh, so whenever you pick these pools, you definitely want to pick ones that are going to trend sideways and stay in range so that you can earn the yield. Hope that makes sense. And then finally, you do have to worry about fees. So every transaction you do, especially on ETH mainnet, it's gotten better, but keep an eye on the fees. Anytime that you enter or exit a liquidity pool, there's a series of transactions, and they can ding the shit out of you, especially on ETH mainnet. Other protocols are pretty good. Base, fractions of a cent, not a big deal. But ETH mainnet, it can be 5, 10, $20, or more sometimes. So, if you only have small amounts in your liquidity pools, like a couple $100 or a couple $1,000, and you're claiming your yield, of $50, and you paid a $10, gas fee to get that out, you only made $40. So, make sure you keep an eye on that sort of thing. And if it cost you $10 to get into that pool, now that you only made $30. So, you need to make sure that you're tracking your positions to ensure you stay profitable. All right, where are we at? So, Plume. I'm always going on and on about Plume. And I want to make sure that people understand what Plume is. Plume is more of a picks and shovels. It's not in competition with projects like Ondo that's doing actual tokenization. A lot of what Plume offers is it added functionality for projects like Plume. They're actually a partner with Plume, or Ondo and Plume are partners and working together as far as tokenizing real world assets and things like that. So wanted to put that out there. If you're interested in Plume, this Plumeberg, this Plumeberg, Plume Network.xyz, their blog, it's their news, and there's a lot of really good alpha on here. If you're interested in, understanding, what's going on, new partnerships, Right here, Apollo Global invests in RWA leader Plume Network. Apollo Global Management, one of the world's largest alternative asset managers, has made a strategic seven-figure investment in Plume Network, a purpose-built blockchain for real-world asset tokenization. With over 18 million testnet wallets, Plume is quickly becoming a core infrastructure layer for institutional grade. Want to stress that institutional grade tokenized finance. And Apollo support signals growing interest in churning off chain assets into on chain projects or products. So, those that don't understand RWAs, it basically all it is taking illiquid assets and making them more liquid. So real estate, stocks, bonds, treasuries, gold, precious metals, intellectual property, music, art, all of those things. Once it's tokenized, for instance, stocks. You have to wait, between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Better not be a holiday, and you have to go through a broker to trade stocks. With RWAs, if they tokenize that, you can buy, sell, trade, whatever, tokenized stocks 24/7, 365. No need to worry about, the stock markets and traders and brokers and, all those sorts of things. So, and you can fractionalize things. If you own a piece of property and you want to take out a loan against that, if it's tokenized, you could go to, to a DEX, put it up as collateral, take out a loan against it, and then people like myself can lend out money, lend out liquidity so people can take out those loans. You keep ownership of that asset as long as you don't get liquidated, and you can take that loan and go and invest in other things or do whatever you want with that. So it just makes illiquid assets liquid. So all right. So I'm going to share with you real quick a this has been for the past since we started dumping. Before we started dumping, that ETH pool that I shared with you was a huge part of my earning. Um, and since going out of range, Plume has just been printing me money. So, as you can see here, and I'm gonna break it down to how I do it to ensure that I'm always earning. So at the bottom here, you can see that this position is Plume USDC. It's in range because it's a full range position. It doesn't matter if Plume goes to zero or if Plume goes to $500, per token. I'm earning right now 65% APR. Doesn't matter what the price of Plume does. That is how I build out my foundation. So lending, you know, if you put liquidity on, something like, like Aave, you are always going to be earning yield. Anytime that your liquidity is being lent out, you're earning yield. It's not going to be a lot. Sometimes it's only like 5%, 10%, but it's just magic mailbox money. It's just printing you money while you sleep. If you're on vacation, while you're at work, it's like a small second business that's just earning you yield 24/7. Same with AMMs. It's just always printing money. So the majority of my DeFi portfolio is always in lending and AMMs. My personal portfolio that mitigates risk. Now, to beef up my earning, I also have these ranged positions, and I have other ranged positions on other assets. This one right now is out of range. It's my largest position with 1,300 bucks in there. But I've earned almost $90 in the past couple of weeks on it. So I'm okay with it being out of range for a minute. It's just barely out of range. And then of course I have this one that's in range, and it's a ranged position as well, 62%. But check this out, only $836. This one's 1,300. I haven't had this one open. I've had this one open about half as long as this one, and because it's a V4, which is a version 4, which is optimized with hooks on Uniswap. I've actually almost made in half the time, almost made the same amount of money with a little over half of what I have invested in this one. I'm actually thinking of migrating. I've been testing this out to share with you all. To find out if version 3 or version 4 was better. And I'm about to pull the trigger on just migrating these over to version 4. It just seems to earn better. And in other future episodes, I'll get into what the difference is, but and what hooks are. But you can see this one is earning very well, and I'll show you those ranges. So you can see here that these are the ranges that I set. So the one that's in range right now is this gold, the gold lines here, and that is this top one. That's it's outperforming this one. But if you look, the one that's outperforming, I have a narrower range on this version 3, and it should be massively outperforming because I have more liquidity in that position and it's a narrower range. It should be destroying this other position. However, because of that version 4 and hooks, it I honestly need to keep digging, so I can better understand it and explain it to you. As far as the hooks, I know it optimizes the yield earning on the position, but it is actually earning better with a wider range. So anything between 15 cents and 25 cents on this position, I'm earning. So yeah, it's I'll give you guys an update, once I kind of get a better handle on that. So Wispy, it looks like Wispy made a mistake in rebalancing to 2K from 28. Yeah, was that on ETH or was that on Plume? Wispy, let me know because I'm more than happy to help you out with that. Figuring out how to best deal with when to rebalance and things like that. Because there's all kinds of strategies you can do where you can snuggle rebalance, and and I'll ask Lucas about that on Monday when he's on, because that guy is freaking the guru on the mountaintop when it comes to DeFi. I can't tell you how excited I am to have him on. But I'll start closing out the show. I just wanted to come on and finish up what we got cut off from yesterday with the power outage. But this is just a part of my portfolio. Obviously, over on Uniswap, I have some of it, and I have some other positions on Aerodrome and locks and things like that that I'll share with those of you that are new to the channel. But uh, you can see up top here on Aerodrome, I have this USDC Arrow full range position, and it's steady earning about 30, 40, sometimes 50% APR. Just it's only a couple bucks a day. Doesn't seem like much, but over time it adds up. And it's only on 2,000, about 2,200 bucks. This Wrap Sonic USDC E position that I have over on Shadow on the Sonic chain, it's only earning about 62 cents a day, but so far it's earned me $15.52. These are just some of the small positions that I have. But again, I mean, I've only had these open for a couple of weeks, and I'm earning a couple $100 a month on them, which I'm using as dry powder to open new positions or add to these positions, and it's all free money. And in the past 4 months, I haven't used any of my own cash to buy crypto. And over the past 4 months, I've more than doubled the amount of tokens that I have in Arrow, in Plume, in Ondo, in a lot of my other holdings. I've more than doubled the amount of tokens that I have just from earning and using that yield to plus up those bags and buy and move into, stables to lend out, and, and then use that to, to buy new projects, when they come up. When Jeff has these, airdrop gems of new projects that are coming out, then when they go live and they do their, initial coin offering, I can actually, start DCAing into those projects. That is the beauty of DeFi. Is once you get rolling, and I know Wispy, I know that, you're out there doing it, Mr. Mark. There's a bunch of guys out there that have been getting into DeFi with me. Um, and Jeff is one of them. And they're starting to figure out how to tweak their portfolio to, constantly be earning yield. And you can start with a couple $100. You don't need a lot of money. Yeah, you're not going to be making hundreds of dollars a day or thousands of dollars a month, but, over a week or two, you might earn $20. You might earn $30. I mean, that's like walking down the street and every couple of weeks, you're finding a $20 bill. It adds up, over a month, that might be 60 or $80 that you're earning. And then you take that and you add it to it and it just compounds. And every time that you add a new position or you plus up, one of these, pools that you're in, all you're doing is just, and then of course, price appreciation. When the market starts to pump and it two, three, four, five X's, then your deposit amount gets that price appreciation. You're not going to miss out on, it's not going to be as much depending on the position that you're in. If it's lending, it will. The AMMs, you're going to get price appreciation. It's going to be mitigated a little bit because it's DCAing you in and out, of those assets. But you will get price appreciation, and you're earning yield. So, you're constantly, again, stacking those bags. Arrow is, the reason I keep all of my Arrow bags on Aerodrome is because my Arrow USDC pairs are just earning more Arrow. So, of course, that's just plussing them up. So, anyway, I'll end with that. If you have any questions, please, by all means, that's a perfect way to do it, Ellie. That's the best way that, and that's the way I did it. Is I watched Crypto Labs research and learned the terminology and, learned how the liquidity pools work and providing liquidity and what exactly it was and, which protocols were the safest to put my liquidity on. How to, be safe in, connecting my wallet, how to, make sure I disconnect my wallet after I interact with a protocol, so I don't leave like a doorway open. So if the protocol gets hacked, then, they can't drain my wallet. So yeah, I mean that's what I would suggest is, yeah, put a couple $100 into lending, or I would suggest you start with lending and then get into an AMM. The reason being is lending is basically hodling, and but you earn yield on your hodl bags. AMMs get a little more complex. You can get divergence loss and things like that. And really, all that is it's the difference between if you hodled and if and having it in a liquidity pool. So basically, it's all if you're having a loss, it's because you would have earned more hodling than you did in that pool because you didn't earn yield fast enough to make up for, the difference. I don't care about that. I'm only using like 20-25% of my overall portfolio in my DeFi portfolio. So if I'm not getting full price appreciation on that little bit of my portfolio, but I'm earning yield, I'm okay with that because I'm building out my DeFi portfolio to be residual income. I want to get to where I have a couple hundred grand in there and I'm averaging 10% per month, to where, I'm making, a couple $1,000s a month that I can add to my quality of life. That I can buy more crypto with, or I can buy some real estate. I can, go on a trip. I can buy a car. I can do some, work on the property. I'm just looking to augment my income. And if you can get to where you're making an extra, three, four, $500 a month, yeah, I mean, you're not going to be driving a Lambo, but that's a car payment. I mean, you have other people paying your car payment for you, if you can pay down your debt, if you have credit card debt, if you can make a couple extra $100 a month and pay down that credit card debt. I mean, I mean, DeFi is a huge opportunity. I cannot stress it enough. To get in the trenches, learn about DeFi, and really leverage this to plus up your bags for what's coming. Because if you look at these markets, yeah, the price is down on everything, but these institutions are not slowing down. They are buying in mass. They are building in mass. Everything that is going on is bullish right now. So with that, I'll jump out of here. But I appreciate all of you. Ellie, I'll just say it. Ellie Fox, Wispy, Granny's Garden, OG Backroad, Alexandra G, uh, C90, FTW, appreciate you. More channel noise, Kyle Watts, sufficient enough. Falco, Sally Stacks, uh, more channel noise. Eddie's average. I hope I didn't, Jay, nasty stepmom. I hope I didn't, miss any of your questions. But by all means, actually, reach out to me on X if you have any questions. I'll never ask for access to your wallet, anything like that. But if you just have some general questions, follow me on X. Veteran the number 4 crypto. I'm more than happy to take the time. I'll even make a pop up video here on the channel and giving you a tutorial. If you have a complex question and you're very visual, I'll do a quick video for you, just to walk you through it. Like I said, I really want to help you all out there with DeFi because I just see it as such a huge opportunity for people. And one last thing before we go, let me share this. So, Discover Crypto and Hit Network is starting uh, a Discord server where you're going to be able to find Kelly over at BitLab Academy, Drew at the Blockchain Basement, Isaac, me and Jeff, here on DeFi Crypto and Airdrops, DZ, TJ and Josh over on Discover Crypto. Basically the whole family is going to be on this Discord. And it's going to be a great place where you're going to be able to find, the DeFi course and the airdrops hunting guide that we're building out, and you'll be able to ask questions. You'll be able to be a part of community, ask each other questions. But it's in the description of this video. If you're interested, join and by all means, be safe out there, practice safe trading. Make sure that you're putting a condom on your wallet when you're connecting it to sketchy sites. But until next time, appreciate you. Veteran Crypto out.